Hey everyone, welcome back to Ragtag Stacking. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about 3 silver stacking mistakes you should avoid making. Now the first one right off the bat, I think it is the most important, and I think it is the easiest one for a lot of new stackers to fall into, is you should avoid buying and stacking any silver that you can't afford. So yes, there's a few things you should do before you start buying silver. One is setting a budget. Two, also a good thing to do is know what you're stacking for. For me, I'm primarily stacking as a hedge against inflation and as a physical savings account. But getting back into the budget, I do believe that is probably the most important thing for new stackers to understand and to make sure that they have a solid grasp on, because it is very, very easy for people to get in over their heads, especially when you're looking at using it as a hedge against inflation. A lot of people are thinking, oh, I need to get as much of my money out of the system, out of the banks, out of physical cash, and get it into silver as quick as I can. That's all well and good, putting some of your money into precious metals, but you do have to remember that we still live in a world that uses fiat currency. Even with its many problems, it being inflated to the moon, all the stuff that's wrong with it, you still need to use it in your day-to-day lives. You need to you use it for paying bills, you need it for getting groceries. You might hate its guts, but you still need to be obviously using that fiat currency pretty much every single day of your life. So while it is a good idea to put some of it into precious metals, you want to make sure that you're not putting too much into precious metals, because if you are new to stacking, you might not realize just how much premiums are tacked on top of that silver, and just how much you're basically in the hole if you buy some bullion products. You might look at the spot price and say, okay, no, it's whatever, $23 and whatever it is. But you do have to make sure that you need to add on at least up in Canada. Some of it's still up at 20%. 20% premium on some silver, but you got to factor in those premiums, because if you were to take every single dime to your name, it just as a hypothetical, and put it into silver, and then like 2 weeks later you realize, I don't have any money left over to pay the 3 bills that are due at the end of the month. So then you're scrambling, thinking, I need to get some money. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to sell some of that silver I just bought. Well, you're going to be flushing some money down the toilet, barring some huge spike in spot price that magically made up all those extra premiums that you're paying. You're going to be selling it at a loss. And, that's something you don't want to do. That's just throwing money down the drain. So you're going to want to make sure that you definitely have a budget, and a budget that you follow, and that it's, it's not set in stone either. You know what I mean? For me, I always like to reassess around every 3 months. For you, it can be any amount of time, but let's just use 3 months as an example. You're getting ready to start your stack, and you've gone through all of your budgets and all of the things that you need to put money aside for throughout the month, and then you come out with a number, let's just say $100. So at the end of the day, you're comfortable stacking $100 worth of silver a month. So you go ahead and pick up your $100 for the first, second, and third month. And then, after that, you can look and say, okay, I've done a pretty good job. I haven't, ran out of any money in my budget. I've had some surplus. So, since I've, been pretty good, I feel comfortable. I can bump this up to $150. But also it could be inverse. Even though $100 isn't a huge amount, for some people they do still have maybe some student debt, medical bills they need to pay off. Maybe $100 isn't something that they can swing. Then they're just going to have to pull back and maybe not buy as much right away. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense to just jump out way ahead and buy a bunch of silver and have a big stack if you can't afford that silver. It's just a ticking time bomb until something happens where you need to liquidate some of that stack. For me, number one, the most important, is making sure you stick to a budget and avoid buying any silver that you cannot afford at the time. So number two, you might think it's weird to think about just because you're getting into stacking. You haven't even bought your first ounce of silver. But I'm saying the second mistake that you should not make is going into it without an exit plan. Sure, everything makes sense on the front end. You're buying this silver as that hedge against inflation. You want to protect yourself from the devalued dollar, all this, and everything makes sense in your head. But what are you going to do with the silver in a decade? Are you just going to trade it in for more cash? Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of doing it all those years? just to move all of that hedge against the back into that fiat currency that you were hedging against in the first place. So for those people that aren't planning on doing anything with their stack while they are living, they don't really need to worry about too much of that, because they are going to be handing it down to their loved ones, their children, spouse, whatever it is. But you're going to want to make sure you educate them as well, because they're just going to get this big heaping pile of silver and gold, and they're like, oh, thanks grandpa, I'm not a stacker, I don't want any of this, I'm just going to go and sell it to some pawn shop for 30 cents on the dollar of what it's worth. And even then, they'd probably still think, oh, I love grandpa. I got, $3,000 worth of silver from the stuff that he left me, even though the stuff that he left me is worth $10,000. I just sold it to a person that took advantage of some rube coming in through the door. So if you do plan on passing it down, at least educate the people that you plan on passing it down to on what to do with it. But if you're planning on, using some of your stack, like for me, I'm planning on stacking for decades. I'm not planning on stacking to my deathbed, but I do plan on stacking for a long time. And it'd be good to, pass down some of the stack to family members, but also it'd be cool to, liquidate some of it from some other hard assets. Like I said, selling every ounce that you have and every back into the fiat currency system really doesn't make sense for the whole purpose of stacking. So yes, if you do want to liquidate some of it to, say, pay off the remainder of your home, or if you want to actually go out and buy like a cottage in the country, and you can sell half your stack and you bought the thing outright or something like that. So hard assets obviously being one thing that you can sell it and use that money towards. Also, you can just use it to maybe bankroll another investment. If you wanted to get some more money into the stock market because you're seeing there's a dip here and you think that your portfolio might take off when you're following these trends, then yeah, maybe you want to take a little extra silver and take that money and put it into the markets, and you could do very well in the short term on the markets, turning that money into quite a bit. With silver, it's a long-term play. This really isn't as an investment or anything like that. This is for, as I said, savings account and hedge against inflation for me. So if you wanted just a little bit more money, like again, budgeting is good. If you have a budget set aside for your stocks and everything like that, and you feel you just want that little bit more, then yeah, maybe it would be a good idea to liquidate some of your silver to put it into the markets, and use that as like some more money to invest with. Because like I said, with the silver here, I don't really view it as an investment. Because I do think it is very important to know what your exit strategy is with your stacking, just because it could be all for naught if you pass it down to a grandson who just has no idea what to do with it and just throws the most of the value down the tubes when he just walks into a pawn shop to take whatever the guy's going to give him. And the third thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure to not cheap out on security. If you're going to be buying these precious metals, you're not just going to want to keep them out in the open, out in your coffee table for when friends and family come along. You say, oh, just move my 5-ounce Libertad out of the way, and just or use it as a coaster for your coffee cup, whatever it is. Just all my silver is. That's obviously nobody does that. That's an extreme example of it, but you're going to want to make sure to not cheap out on a safe. Some people like to have them in different places. Some, they travel quite a bit, so they don't, feel comfortable having a lot of their stuff at one particular residence. If they're traveling, whatever, like 30 weeks out of the year, they're out of there. So, it might make sense to have it vaulted. The fees are going to be there. But if you're not physically in your house and you kind of feel weird having your precious metals there, even though you got a big safe and you've made sure it's secure, for some people, I have heard in the comments that they spread it out. They have some, in their house, they have some in their yard, they have some off-site. There's different ways to make sure that it's secure. And if you do keep it in your house, obviously with the physical stuff, you're going to want to get a nice safe. Ultimately, the best thing to do if you can is to actually bolt it to the floor. For me, I would love to have it, in the building a house just with the foundation, actually just lowering the safe down into the basement and actually just encasing the bottom of it into the cement floor of the basement. That'd be my ideal situation for the safe, is just having it, embedded into the basement floor, so that's not going anywhere. But yeah, you're just going to want to make sure that it's secured, and just for protecting the house and protecting the rest of your family, there are other ways to protect your silver as well. I've talked with plenty of stackers that make sure that they have heavy security at their house, for all sorts of reasons, like I said, but obviously one of the reasons being the silver. And as far as security goes, that also includes kind of just not broadcasting that you have all this gold and silver around. That's another security risk that you run into. So you're gonna want to make sure to not be blabbing to everybody about the $1,000 worth of silver that just came in, or that brand new gold coin that you've been waiting for finally showed up at my house. Just kind of keep it to yourself. I'm not saying that the people you're hanging around with aren't trustworthy. Maybe they aren't, but I'm just saying, you could be with friends talking over a lunch break, and just some random person that you see around the office but don't even know his name just comes into the kitchen to grab a Coke and overhears this, and just happens to work at payroll, and happens to know exactly where you live, and happens to know people that break into places and steal stuff. This is just a hypothetical of what could possibly go wrong. I mean, that's very far-fetched, and not a lot of people are just screaming about their precious metals on their lunch break. But some people, they're not too aware of their surroundings, and like to talk about themselves. So you just kind of want to make sure to not broadcast to the world that you're doing this. And you're going to want to make sure that the stuff that you do stack is nice and securely put away in your house, and you have sufficient enough defense against it, and you're happy and comfortable with the way that you've stacked your precious metals away. So yeah, you're not just going to want to throw it in some shoebox and throw it under your bed. You know what I mean? You want to make sure you have it in a nice, secure spot, and you don't want to cheap out on security. So yeah, those are the three things that I just kind of want to go over just in recap. One is don't buy any silver that you can't afford. It's very, very easy to get in over your head when you first start stacking. Number two is making sure you have an exit plan, that you know what you're doing with the silver that you're stacking. And number three, don't cheap out on security. You know what I mean? You're going to be spending all this money on your future, and making sure that you and your family and hopefully with your stack, even some generations down the line, can benefit from what you're doing now. So you're going to want to make sure that all that stuff is secure and safe, and there are plenty of ways of doing that, and you're going to want to make sure to make sure that you do that. But let me know in the comments, because I do know that a lot of people have talked about some of the mistakes that they have made, where they did kind of get in over their head a little bit, and had to bite the bullet and pretty much sell back all of the silver that they had stacked in some little small period of time, but just losing all of that premium. Yeah, that's definitely a kick in the pants. So unfortunately, you don't like to hear it, but I do see those comments in the in some of the videos, and yeah, it's just it shows that it's a very common thing to happen to new stackers. I almost fell down it too, just getting some of it was the Britannias, the 2020 Britannias. When I first got these ones, I swear I had to have my hands in a straitjacket so I wouldn't click my laptop to just keep buying more and more of these things. They were the nicest coin I ever had at the time, and I still like the Britannias. But yeah, definitely you can get in over your head, and that's not a good thing. So anyways, I've been rambling long enough, and if I don't end this now, I'll go on for another hour. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you come back for the next one. Thank you.